Hello students, welcome to the series on business environment. The topic of this lecture is components of business environment in continuation with the last lecture. In the last lecture we discussed at length the technological environment. In this lecture we will talk about the natural and demographic environment as the components of macro environment. We know that macro environment is the external environment and business has no control over it. To begin with, let us discuss the natural environment. India's natural heritage is as good as its cultural heritage. Trade and commerce depend on the natural resources, so do the Indian economy. Indian natural heritage includes land, forest, large variety of flora and fauna, and the interlinked ecosystem. This attracts lot of tourists here. Most of our temples and monuments are also surrounded by beautiful scenery, which is the center of attraction for the tourists here, because these tourists attain mental peace here in India. The natural environment is composed of geographical and ecological factors. These factors are natural resources, weather and climatic conditions, port facilities, topographical factors like soil, landforms, sea, river, rainfall and environmental pollution. Gujarat and Maharashtra has most of the textile industries in India. Climatic and weather conditions highly affect the location of such industries. Availability of raw material source is very important for the functioning of the business and for the functioning of industries like iron and steel. So, geographical factors affect the location of such industries. Keeping this factor in mind, most of the iron and steel industries are located in Orissa and Bihar in India. Sugar industries are located in most part of Uttar Pradesh because of the availability of sugarcane there. Sugarcane is cultivated in these areas. Fish industries are located near sea coast in order to minimize the transportation cost. Export-oriented industries are located near the ports. The demand of clothes, building material, room heater, air conditioners, etc. is highly dependent on the weather and climatic conditions. For example, room heaters and woolen clothes have a high demand in hilly areas, whereas air conditioners and coolers are in high demand in plains. Similarly, the demand for jeeps is high as compared to cars in hilly areas because of the difficult terrain. The functioning and performance of the business may be badly affected by natural calamities like flood, drought, cyclones and tsunami if the business unit is set up in natural calamities prone area. As per the BBC news dated 22nd March 2005, when India experienced tsunami in the year 2004, the government decided to bear the reconstruction cost by itself than relying on the aid from outside. This resulted in higher cost to the budget than in some neighboring countries. In India, after tsunami which hit on 26 January 2004, the damage assessed was at $1.2 billion. According to the calculations from Citigroup, which resulted in figures far higher than any official estimate by that time, the cost was as high as $6.5 billion, based on a reduction of 0.4% of GDP over up to 4 years. Till the year 2004 and before, the growth rate of Indian economy was as high as 8%. In 2005, the estimated growth rate was 6 to 6.5%. It was low because of poorer agricultural conditions. The tourism earnings were 2% of GDP in the year 2004. According to the best official survey, damage in Andaman and Nicobar Islands was estimated at $600 million, despite the lack of sophisticated infrastructure. Some 70% of the island's jetties were damaged, causing trouble for fishing industry, which is the source of 2/3 of local employment. These were the effects of tsunami on the Indian economy as reported by BBC in the year 2005. As mentioned earlier, ecological factor is the component of natural environment and thus it affects the functioning and performance of the business. Ecological balance gets disturbed because of the environmental pollution. Environmental pollution is caused due to air, water and noise pollution. Various acts have been formed by the Indian government to control the environmental pollution. Thus, it can be said that climatic and weather conditions, availability of natural resources, topographical factors or the physical features of a place, pollution control, location and port facilities are the components of natural environment. The geographical and pollution factors affect the functioning and performance of the business. The Indian government has framed the enactments and the laws to control environmental pollution and the business must strictly comply with these laws. It is important to note here that the climatic changes across the earth are warning the humanity against its hard days ahead. In order to make the life comfortable, easier and luxurious, we have not cooperated with the nature. We have misused some of our natural resources as a result of which the nature has been disturbed. As a result of which we have to face the disastrous effects because of depletion of Earth's natural resources and atmosphere that has supported the life throughout. Business and industry have contributed lot to the environmental pollution by not strictly complying with the laws as set up by the government. These laws are set up by the government to control pollution. Now this has affected the nature and caused major problems like global warming and has led to various diseases. After independence, the Indian government concentrated on rapid economic development through extensive and intensive exploitation of natural resources. The Indian government allowed the landlords, industrialists and private contractors to encroach upon the public land. This was because of the widespread bureaucracy and corruption in India, as a result of which environmental degradation led to tremendous sufferings to millions of farmers in India. The poor farmers, when they lost their lands in the villages, moved to the cities in search of jobs and eventually they became the laborers from the farmers. These farmers who moved to cities have been termed as ecology refugees, as they moved to cities after witnessing destruction of forest, flood and drought. The impact of destruction of environment was imposed on Indian women from poor families. These women were forced to spend 5 to 10 hours a day foraging for fuel, fodder and water in addition to the household work. These women not only did the household work but were engaged in agricultural activities and caring for the animals. Industries are polluting the environment all across the globe and high carbon emission is the common problem everywhere. This has led to global climatic changes. This has resulted in rapid melting of glaciers in high mountain areas like Himalayas in India. The unseasonal rainfall, heavy floods, earthquake, tsunami, etc. are the results of the same. Nations are still not coming together and making a serious effort in reducing the level of carbon emission by substituting biofuels against the use of mineral fuels. The rapid increase in production of pollutants from the industries and factories has increased the level of concentration of number of greenhouse and ozone depletion gases. This has resulted in global warming and damage to the ozone layer. Industries constantly burn fossil fuel, which is the main source for greenhouse gases. In USA, the level of per capita emission of carbon dioxide is 19 times higher than Africa and 23 times higher than India. According to Michael P. Todaro, carbon dioxide in developing countries is generated through burning of vegetation to clear new land, and the deforestation in developing countries is because of the following reasons: the falling commodity prices and the need for earning foreign exchange via timber exports, economic stagnation in developing countries forcing the rural poor to fall back upon agriculture to eke out their living, that is, the rural poor are forced to clear the rainforest land for agricultural use. The dependence of developing countries on traditional fuels as the predominant source of energy. So, these were the main reasons. In order to combat the global climatic challenge and to protect the environment, businesses should reduce the pollutants they emit into the environment by adopting suitable industrial processes. Businesses should encourage recycling or reuse of the materials. Businesses should minimize the use of non-renewable resources and find out ways to use the renewable resources for the production. Businesses should reduce wastage by improving production processes and by developing products with greater durability and consumer life. Businesses should take interest in educating their employees and workers about the environmental issues and should teach them the responsible ways to protect the environment. Now let's talk about the dependence of business on the natural environment. No business can be established or can survive if the climatic conditions are not hospitable. This is because the business and industry depends largely on the variety of natural resources and the various components of natural environment which we discussed in this lecture. Business use and supply oil, forest-based products and minerals that come from the natural resources. The Indian economy is largely dependent on the agriculture. Agricultural activities give us food, and this food is provided to us by the business and the industries. Business and industries get these agricultural products from the natural environment. So, the businesses are dependent on the natural environment. $1 billion are spent by the countries on research and development for the advancement of the technology. But if the natural environment is not safe and if lots and lots of natural calamities occur and no human beings are left on the earth, then what will we do about this technology? Think about that. Domestic and international trade and travel is also dependent on the geographical and climatic factors. Cancellation of flight occur due to heavy snow or flurries, which affects the business meetings and results in delay in making the business decisions. Government and business should show interest in protecting and preserving the natural environment and the ecology of the country. Businesses flourish due to the advantages enjoyed from the natural environment, but at the same time business should think about protecting and preserving the environment. Business should come forward and voluntarily play an active role in the protection and preservation of the environment. The business should think it as its own as well as national interest to protect the environment. This is how business and natural environment are related to each other. The functioning and performance of the business depends largely upon the natural environment. So, the business should follow the rules and laws enacted by the government to control pollution and to protect the natural environment. Now students, let us discuss the demographic environment and its impact on the business. Demographic environment consists of the study of features of the population. These features are size of the population and population growth in terms of numbers or decline or growth over a period of time, composition in terms of age and sex, family size and structure, caste, religion and political affiliations, education status, urban and rural population, and economic stratification. So, these are basically the segments of the population, and this data, which is the decennial census, is used by the business for demand analysis and marketing research. We know that business provides goods and services to the society, and the demand for these goods and services arises from the population. According to the data released by the World Bank, the population of India in the year 2009 was approximately 1.15 billion. India is considered to be the vast and rapidly growing market for the businesses. With the liberalized economy, large variety of natural resources, a population with the average age of 25 years makes India the favorite destination for businesses to provide their goods and services to. Fragmentation of joint families into nuclear families because of economic resurgence, prospering rural areas, well-educated women entering the workforce, are the reasons for the development of the Indian economy. This economy is growing because of the efforts by the population here. So, business should study the population for analyzing the demand. It is very important for the business to study the income of the consumers for fixing the prices of the goods and services provided by the business to be consumed by the consumers. Per capita income is calculated by evenly dividing the national income among the country's population. As per the Economic Times, India's per capita income is projected to grow by 17.3% to Rs 54,527 in the year 2010 and 11 from Rs 46,492 in the year ago period, according to the official data. This is an exciting news for the new businesses or the businesses already into the operation to sell their goods and services to the Indian consumers. The business operation is largely dependent on the laborers, and it is important for the business to know that these laborers are coming from the population. They are well skilled, but the business need to handle them differently from their predecessors. This is because need, wants and ambitions of these new laborers are different. Businesses should therefore carefully decode the messages concealed in the census report. That is, business should analyze and understand the wants and requirements of the different sections of the society and act accordingly. The demographic factors are the crucial indicators of the opportunities ahead for the business in the field of retail, construction and entertainment industries because of the large FDI involved in these sectors. The demographic environment affects the taste and preferences of the customers. Now we will discuss the various features of demographic environment which I mentioned earlier in this lecture. These features are size of the population, composition in terms of age and sex, family size and structure, caste, religion and political affiliations, education status, urban and rural population and economic stratification. Let's begin with the first feature of demographic factor, that is size of the population. Large population indicates availability of cheap labor and more demand of goods and services provided by the business. So, this has a favorable impact on the business. Availability of cheap labor and growing Indian markets have encouraged many multinational companies to invest here. Easy mobility of labor between different occupations help the businesses to function smoothly, and this mobility results in the availability of laborers at lower wage rates. Business in return provides good working conditions to these laborers. The next feature is composition in terms of age and sex. Age composition means the proportion of different age group of people in the population, whereas sex composition means the ratio of female and male in the population. It is very important for the business to conduct a research on the taste and preference of different groups of males and females and provide the goods and services according to their taste and preference. The next feature is family size and structure. The family size and structure of the family influence the taste and preferences of the customers, and the consumption level of the customers also depend upon this factor. So, the business should know the size and structure of the families in the area of operation to analyze the demand and provide the goods and services to the customers accordingly. The next feature is caste, religion and political affiliation. Caste, religion and political affiliation of the individual influence their demand for the goods and services provided by the business. So, the business should analyze and understand it and adjust the supply of goods and services according to the demand of the customers. The next feature is education status. The other important demographic factor that affects the business is education status of the population. If the population is less educated, then the availability of unskilled labor will be high. If the population is highly educated, then the availability of unskilled labor will be less. On the other hand, if the population is highly educated, then the customers will be very particular about their taste and preferences, and they will demand high quality goods and services by the business. The next feature is urban and rural population. There is a lot of difference between the goods and services provided to the urban and rural population. This is simply because the wants and requirements of the rural and urban population are different. For example, urban population prefers high quality goods and services because most of them are well educated, and the kind of goods and services provided by the business should give the consumers comfort and satisfaction, whereas rural population does require the satisfaction, but they believe in natural products. The next feature is economic stratification. Economic stratification of population means classification of the population on the basis of income level of the consumers. For example, upper income class, commonly known as the rich class, middle class, that is middle income class, and the lower income class, which is commonly known as the poor. It is very important for the business to identify to which class it is providing the goods and services to, and should continuously conduct the research on the taste and preferences of such class of people, because the taste and preferences of these people keep on changing and business has to keep up with these changes. So, these were the factors or the features of the demographic factor which affects the functioning or performance of the business. The demographic environment is external environment and it is not in control of the business. It is very important for the business to analyze the demographic factor as well. For example, with the decline in birth rate of United States, the proportion of infants or kids reduced there. This had a negative impact on the companies providing the baby products, as a result of which Johnson & Johnson, which is a leading brand in providing the baby products, had to expand its range of products, and thus it started manufacturing the products for the adults as well. Earlier it was in the process of providing the goods and services which were good for the babies only. This example proves that demographic factors influence the policy making and the major business decisions. To conclude, it can be said that the economic growth of a country depends upon the external business environmental factors. For example, the natural and demographic factors which we discussed in this lecture. These components are not in control of the business, so the business should change its policies and strategies according to the changes in these environmental factors. In the words of George Bernard Shaw, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. To relate this with what we studied in this lecture, it can be said that in order to stay in the market, business should understand and analyze the changes in the demographic environment. This is because the taste and preferences of the customers keep on changing, and business has to change its policies and strategies according to the changes in the taste and preference of the customers to stay longer in the market. In the same way, if the business change its mind from the only aim to earning the profit to serving the society, then it can stay longer in the market. Business can do so by caring for the environment. This will enhance the reputation and the brand image of the business. This will result in greater customer loyalty and increased sales. This will also attract the talented employees. Business should keep in mind that the lending banks do consider the environmental issues. So students, now we know how the business is dependent on the natural and demographic environment. Thank you.